Hey, SAAB fans, great to be back with you again for another episode of SAAB Talk Live. Carl, you are back at home after being on the road, traveling those Indy races. That's kind of an exciting job to have to take on.
I threading the needle. I'm off to the Portland Grand Prix in the morning. So
Wow. And just so people know,
yeah,
let's bring them up to speed on what the reason that you're flying all over the country. We keep seeing on Facebook your journeys and your missions. What are you doing out
yes.
there?
So the company I work for, the day job, we sponsor an IndyCar, and we go out there. We entertain guests and customers. Andretti likes to have the same people from the companies show up. So I got unceremoniously tapped to do that. It's been a lot of fun, but it's also been a lot of time away. So
Yeah.
the summer has kind of escaped me, but that means that it's time for fall projects. They are plentiful right now.
Yeah, I know you're rebuilding your 9.5 that we saw you purchase not too long ago, and you're making good progress
Yeah.
there.
Yep. I actually just came in from the garage. I just torqued the head back on. Uh, just did all new, Wassner forged pistons, balance shaft delete, new timing chain. The donor motor that I got actually had a bad timing chain. It was the tensioner was overextended by 3 millimeters, and that's just enough to get that thing slapping around in there and make it sound like there was something really bad going on. But all the main bearings and rod bearings were in beautiful shape, but I replaced them out of an abundance of caution and put it all back together, and it's all looking really nice.
And you're chasing a little problem in your C900 too. What's going on here? What are we looking at?
So I drove the thing to the airport for the last trip and got back in it on Sunday night to drive it home. And I'm coming up 93 and I'm, things running sweet. And then all of a sudden the tack just kind of just jumped. And you'll see it in this video in a second.
There it
Yep,
is.
there
Yeah.
it is. So it almost feels like the car is falling flat on its face. So consulted the hive mind of other T5 modified 900 owners, and the consensus was crank position sensor. It also dawned on me that I've put over 20,000 miles on this car in the last 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And I consulted with Jordan, who I got the T5 kit from. He said, the factor in COVID, it could have been a supplier issue, So we're going to replace that crank position sensor when I get back in a couple, week and a half here. See how it runs. But that car is going to be parked anyway. There's going to be a dumpster in front of it because we're replacing the roof on the house. So SAAB shenanigans may have to wait for a little bit, until home stuff is taken care of.
Yeah, well, good thing is CPS on those T5 conversions isn't that hard to do. So that'll be a quickie for you.
Absolutely.
But that raises an interesting point. If it wasn't for the fact that we've got the hive mind, the community that we have, all of us, when we run into a problem, what would you do? You're turning to mechanics and technicians, and the field is thinning out quite a bit. That's a key concern for lots of folks. We talked about that out at SOC, right?
Yes, we did.
So what's happening is we're looking at a lot of these experienced technicians, passing away. We saw that happen recently, or just deciding to fold up shop and retire. And a lot of people are getting very concerned about that. And while we were out at SOC, I ran into Gary Lewis from Moose Proof Motors down in Nashville and talked to him and found out that he actually is actively paying it forward to the next generation by bringing in a young guy whose dad right?
Yeah. So James Ellington joining us tonight, Perry's kid.
Exactly. Perry Ellington from down there on Gnawbone Lane or something like that down in southern Indiana is where they live. But while we were at SOC, I hooked up with Gary and James to just talk a little bit about what's that process and what's happening and how he's paying it forward. So here, take a look.
Well, personally, I've took it on myself. I've trained a lot of people in the past, but I've hired a gentleman that I'm going to train, and he's very bright, and that's the only way that make it last in the future is to pass it on to people and not hold back all your secrets. I believe in, bringing up the new generation. because the cars are going to be there. The people want them still to be repaired. So it's really my duty to SAAB, if I really care about them, to do this. So I have an apprentice now that he's going to be better than I ever was.
Well, I was originally going to be going to a tech school back in Indiana, where I'm from. My dad just said, hey, one of my buddies up in Pennsylvania needs some help with working his shop. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be for me. I'm a little upset, so I'm going to go back to this tech school. And then Dad calls me and says, hey, Gary Lewis down here in Tennessee wants to need somebody to work for him. He wants to train him so he can retire. And I go, oh, yeah, of course, I'd rather do that too.
So I'm putting him through the new SAAB Academy that they released through, because I'm a Heaton franchise, and he'll take all the same classes I did except on hands-on. I can teach him a lot, but to learn the best way, you have to study the books and understand why they did what they did, or else you're never going to master, And that's the goal, for him to become a master tech.
So you've been around SAABs your whole life, right? How many SAABs do you think you've touched?
For me personally, probably 70, at most 70, because I worked with him and he'd do most of the working and I'd just kind of fetch him tools. He's probably touched thousands.
Part of the reservation about young people coming into the industry is mom and dad who don't like the thought of their kids being a mechanic. What kind of a living can a young guy make today?
Well, I put 2 kids through college, a wife through college, all being a technician, and it's a great life. It's physical on your body at times, but you can make a great living, an honest living, and you actually have to be as smart as somebody that goes to college, because there's a lot of stuff you have to know.
Do you think people look down their nose at technicians?
Some people do. Some people especially people who go to college, think that the trades in general are just things for like people who can't and aren't as intelligent as most people. So who knows? Hopefully I'll make quite a bit, but that's not all it's about. It's about fun, keeping these things alive. So money's not really a primary concern. Working on something for like an American market car, Ford Fusion or something, especially with all the technology that's in those, it's fun. You're not working with your hands on things, you're working with a computer. That's it. Just wouldn't be as fun as working on a motor, especially a 900 or a 90 die or older stuff. That's what I want to go into. I eventually want to be a restoration technician.
Yeah. So how about that?
The kid's talking about my dream, Lee. I mean, I've been working in tech for 20 years, and one of my really good friends is a Subaru master tech, and the guy makes just as much, if not more, than like some of the people in my company that are seasoned technologists who went to college. But he also went to college. He has a business degree, and said, you know what, I enjoy doing tactile things more than pushing a pencil. So
Yeah.
he made that conscious decision a dozen years ago and hasn't looked back.
You know what?
And I think that when I retire, that's what I want to do, right? Like just turn wrenches and do cool stuff with old cars.
All right. So old guys like you and me, that's one thing, but we've got to get this younger generation engaged and involved. And there's a young kid that we all know as Dad, Todd Tribble, and his son, Colin, is actually now jumping right in and is taking on a restoration project. So here's a quick look at his new YouTube channel and his first project.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm 15 years old and I'm restoring a SAAB. Hey everybody, welcome back to the first real episode of the Bumpy Road Show. Before we start working on the ball joints, we're going to go over what the SAAB factory manual has to say about replacing them, just so we can get some official steps. Today we're going to be installing the Bison Performance suspension kit for my upper and lower ball joints that attach to my steering swivel member, just because the old ones that came with the car simply needed a change, and the kit came with the nuts, bolts, and washers that were necessary to apply it to the steering swivel member, and we're going to show you exactly how that's done. So I have these two bolts here, and what we're going to do with them is we're going to stick them between the control arm and the unibody to allow the suspension to be able to be offloaded so that we don't crush the unibody. After inserting our spacers, now it's time to take the lugs off the wheel so that we can take the wheel off. The first thing I did was I loosened the nut that connects the upper ball joint to the steering swivel member. As it was fastened on tightly, I had to use the appropriate wrench with a hammer to be able to loosen it. And after that, we decided we should release the tie rod. So now that I have this nut loose right here, I'm going to take two hammers and put on either side of the steering knuckle to free up the tie rod, and we're just going to hit it and release this. As you can see in this live demonstration, we used two sledgehammers hitting against the side of the steering knuckle, and we had the nut on the end to be able to contain the vibrations of those hits, but it didn't really work out since it fell off, but we still managed to shock the tie rod out of its place. We're going to use the tapered punch to align the front bolt, so these puts both of them into position, and we want to go from front to the back, so let's see how we can. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try and wrestle this in here and get it on the rail. And to help us adjust it into place, we're going to use the punch. So let's see how we can work this out. To finalize this little project, we're going to be putting the tie rod back onto the steering swivel member, and both of them have the freedom to move around with each other a little bit, so it can be really easy to align them. After you put the tie rod into the steering swivel member, you want to fasten it down with a nut until you're sure that you're ready to torque it, which you can use these specifications to do so. And we have just done a swap. You might not be able to see much from this angle, but this is the hint to the next episode, and I'm wondering if you guys can guess this one in the comments. I'll be seriously surprised if anybody can, and I'll make sure to shout you out in the next video.
Hey, that is pretty cool. So nice job, Colin. That's a good job there, bud.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to see you
And
here.
where was this when I was 16? I remember being in my parents' driveway with my 89 900 and going to go hang out with these two girls named Laura, and I had to like get my car fixed, and I'm like sweating, and like I think to this day, and I mean my parents moved out of that house 7 years ago. There's still marks in the driveway from where the jack stands were that day in 1998. But no, that's really awesome and great content, Colin. Really good job.
Thank you so much. I need all the inspiration I can get, and unfortunately, we need videos like this because the times have just changed, and it's just a whole new era.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, let me back up and just take care of a little bit of business. The name of your channel is Bumpy Roads, right? Bumpy Roads?
Absolutely.
What is the
Bumpy Road.
Bumpy Road, thank you. So look for that, Bumpy Road. What is the bumpy coming from? I know that's your nickname. How did that come along? I don't know that story.
Well, it's a little bit of a double entendre. Bumpy is actually my house nickname. It's what I've always gone by since birth, just because my mom had a bump in her belly, which was me. And so it's always just gone by that nickname for as long as anybody has known it. And we just figured, there's been a lot of issues with this car, as I'll release on the channel. And I just figured it is a perfect name, a bumpy road.
Perfect. Okay, now we understand. Now I get it. I wasn't really sure about that. So you've got a 1986 SPG, right?
I do.
Tell me about this car. What's its problems at this point?
Well, I got it as an inheritance. There was a family friend from Kansas, and we got a call one day just saying, "Hey, do you think you'd be interested in a SAAB?" And my dad, thought, well, what are the conditions? And he said, we want it to go to someone who's young and up and coming, who has a special interest towards these SAABs and will take care of it. And he said, hey, do you think Bumpy has, a place in his garage for this car? And we considered it for a long time, and we thought, this is perfect. This is my entrance into the SAAB world. And so we figured, we'd come pick it up, and we went to Kansas to collect this inheritance. And there have been some maintenance issues that we had to take care of. It was in mechanically like spectacular condition, but it had a little bit of wear on the interior, and so there's a lot of detailing work that needs to be done to it. But there's been a little bit of a catastrophic disaster since then, so it needs a lot of love and care for sure.
Yeah, my understanding is things got a little hot under the hood. Is that what happened here?
It got pretty heated.
Yeah, okay. We'll see that in a future episode, right? I get that. So tell me about you don't even have your driver's license yet, and you're working on this thing.
No, I'm still on my permit.
That's pretty cool. What do your friends think of all of this? Do you have buddies that are involved in cars or interested in cars at all?
So the thing with the youth is that I'm from the South, and the way of life down here is that if you don't have a car, you're missing out on a social experience. And I didn't have a car for a long time up until now, but it's the youth is just enjoying the time that they have, and having a car and being able to go around without having to rely on their social lives, dealing with their parents, is a huge part down here. And my car has just given me that opportunity, and it might carry on for the rest of my teenage years or the rest of my life. So it's really just that unique experience that not a lot of people get to appreciate.
Well, I know that's in the family. I mean, your dad still has his Saab from when he was in high school, so maybe I see that coming for you. What do your buddies think about all of this? Are they wondering what the hell you're doing with your head up underneath the hood?
Well, I haven't I haven't quite told them about the YouTube channel yet, but they do know that I have this rust bucket. Well, that's what they've dubbed it. I might play video games with them sometimes, and they'll be like, "Man, you're always out working on that dang car." And I'm just, well, guys, if I won't do it, who will? So
There it is.
There it
I mean,
is.
that's much kinder. I mean, my first Saab was so faded when I bought it that it looked pink, and everybody's like, "Carl and his pink Saab." I'm like, "Oh, guys, it's red." So rust buckets almost seems less offensive there. But I think to your point here, Colin, you're going to be like leaps and bounds ahead of these guys, because the ability to not only turn wrenches, but to like go through the critical thought and like figure out, like, troubleshoot, problem solve. These are all skills that are gained from doing mechanical work.
Hmm.
So this is going to put you at a great advantage. No matter what you go on to do in life, this is going to be foundational to what you are able to accomplish.
Hey, so for everybody watching on Facebook, I want to let you know that over on YouTube,
no,
Saab Unleashed saying, excellent communication in that bumpy road video. Editing's awesome. You'll be successful. 9K Beater says he'll definitely watch. Laura T, 86 SPG, she's calling you lucky. And
Lucky Bumpy.
Lucky Bumpy, yeah. And 9K says, yep, miss all the time I could have used before I was working or COVID. So, hey, that's great to see the community supporting you already. And tell me, what's your plans on this car? Are you planning on making it a driver, carrying it all the way out to a full restoration show car? What you thinking?
well, I think it'll be a show car in its process. I don't think that I'm just like, I want to build the car with the purpose to drive it. I want to be able to sit behind the wheel and say, I'm driving this down the interstate. This is my car. I did this.
Pretty cool.
Opportunity to be able to do that, because most of the people my age get the cars gifted to them from their parents, from your generic, Honda, Toyota, Chevy car dealership. I inherited my car and I turned it around into something beautiful. And that carries a lot more weight to me, especially while being able to personally learn a life skill that not a lot of people my age get to do. My dad has only been in the game for a few years, and he's been able to accrue an absolutely detrimental amount of knowledge. I mean, not a lot of people at all in the world have been able to do this, and he has, and I'm my age, and I have the rest of my life to be able to do this. So who knows?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Are you planning a career as a technician, or is that just? Do you think this is going to be a hobby thing for you?
Well, much like you, I think I'm just going down the hobbyist mechanic route.
Cool. There's a lot of joy happening. Well, joy and frustration in the hobby mechanic world, right, Carl?
Absolutely.
You bet. Dean M says, 18 Saab fan here. I've had my 9.5 since I was 15. I'm a college freshman and an automotive major. So, hey, man, good for you, Dean. That's outstanding.
Nice.
Yeah. What do your friends think of the idea of being auto techs? Any of them taking a technical career focus, or what's the sense of things in high school world?
Well, in the high school world, you have a lot of people, especially down south, that have trucks like Ford F-150s, old Broncos, and they tend to soup them up. You know, they get lifted kits on them, they lean them. So you have a bunch of at-home technicians, well, mechanics, hobbyist mechanics, I'd say, but you don't have a lot of people that go into the trade anymore. And I've seen, a recent decline, especially in the sub community of techs and mechanics. So I think that the youth is, at least from my experience, just trying to do the motions with college, going for a degree, not necessarily going down the mechanic route.
Yeah, once a few years ago, I worked in the ad agency world, and one of our clients was an education school system, and they were trying to promote career education for in the technical world, automotive, HVAC, that kind of stuff, construction trades. And our research found that the big challenge wasn't the kids, it was mom and dad. They just couldn't stand the thought of their kids not going to college. And
It was heavily stigmatized when I was in high school. And I mean, I was in high school 25 years ago, and both my parents are, they were very successful executives in their careers. They were the first, well, maybe the second of their families to ever go to college. Mm-hmm. So, there's this generational shift that has happened, and vocational education, like, given the opportunity again, if I were a freshman in high school all over again, you'd better believe I would be taking every welding class, every body shop class. I went to a school district that had all this stuff. Yeah. And we just thought it was like for, the kids that came from, the town across the tracks, and, it was for the kids who couldn't, cut it in, 100 level, 200 level classes. Fact of the matter is that was probably the better way to go, because then you then have a life skill. And it's like, I don't use anything from Algebra 2. Like, I rarely think about compound equations and God knows what else, or how to conjugate verbs in Spanish. Like, again, if I could go back and do this all over again, I would have been in every shop class they offered.
Yeah, totally. There was the guy who was fixing my boiler last winter. I'm chatting him up and said, gee, how hard is it to get young guys to come and work? And he said, we are desperate. We will take people right out of a 2-year Ivy Tech kind of program, and they'll be making $75,000 in their first year. You got to want to crawl around and get dirty a little bit. But he said, you know what, you're going to have a really good life because they're not exporting this job to China. Well, good point, buddy. Good point. So, hey, enough of the old guys kind of ragging on here, Colin. Tell us about what's next on your channel. You've got one episode posted. What's coming up?
Right now, I finished a video on my axle boot replacement, and I am just now finishing a video on my shift linkage issue. So, can't wait to release it.
And what I think is cool is you're following along and kind of using the manual, the shop manual, which I see right over your shoulder right there. Tell us how that's all playing a role.
Well, I think that the way that became a segment on my channel is that I was staying with a master tech, Mr. Demi Valtanis, and I just witnessed firsthand this extreme wealth of knowledge, and he said it all comes from the books. He didn't go to college for an extensive amount of time, at least that I know of. But as far as I know, he self-taught himself geometry at a master's degree level. He self-taught himself on how to work on cars. He interned at these different shops, automotive shops. And it was wonderful to see that all of this knowledge could come from books. So I figured that a lot of people, especially hobbyist mechanics, might not have access to that amount of information. So I just wanted to enlighten like what I'm doing and just show you exactly what's coming from the service manual.
It's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think we got your story. What else you want to leave us with? Any last thoughts, Colin?
Well, I think that we all need to be inspired by the fact that the world, especially the SAAB community, runs on its mechanics and it's, blue collar workers. And the fact, buildings don't just build themselves. And I think that the way I became attracted to this project is that, with the tragic passing of Mr. Demi Valtanis, is that the world lost a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. And so if I have the opportunity to learn that knowledge and be able to share that with people and enlighten people that are in the same position as I once was, just not knowing much about cars, I think that it's becomes my responsibility and my due diligence to be able to just share that knowledge around as best as I can.
Way to go, brother. I'm so on board with you. That's
I love it.
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
All right, so the name of the channel is Bumpy Road. It's over on YouTube. I hope you guys will go on over, give it a look, subscribe. You know how that program works. And we'll have a good time watching you learn how to do the stuff that a lot of us have had to learn ourselves one way or another. So good for you for sharing it with a younger community. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you once were. It's just a learning process.
Awesome. Hey, Colin, good on you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thanks, Colin. Good seeing you.
You too.
What a good kid, huh?
Yeah. It gives me hope for the future. Like I was out in the workshop last night. I was, putting new valve stem seals in the 235 head I had on the bench. Valve keepers are a pain in the butt. And I put a Facebook story up and the SAAB doctor himself, Mr. Joe Reichard, reaches out to me. He's like, dude, just put a little dab of grease on there and, then it'll stick to the valve stem. I'm like, of course. And it just went so much easier. And while that was all happening, Facebook Messenger continues blowing up. And there's this girl I went to high school with. She sends me a message. She's like, hey, hope everything's good. My nephew just got his first SAAB. Now, her family all had SAAB, back in the day. And she drove a SAAB for a long time. And so she was like, I showed him like your Facebook and your Instagram. Like he's like obsessed. He wants to learn more. And I'm just like, listen, I'm not a mechanic by trade, but I'll happily take him under my wing and show him some of the stuff I've built, stuff I'm building. We just have to keep, sharing and keep like using the information we have to just keep this brand alive. And I'm all about it.
Yeah, drag a youngster into the shop with you the next time you're working on something. Hand him a tool and say, "Here,
Right.
yeah, give me a hand."
I've got 7 nephews and 2 nieces that have never turned a wrench.
Yeah,
and 3 of them, they have a body shop. That's their family business. So it's like, anytime they see me with the hood open or like I roll up in the SAAB convertible, they're like, "What is that?" They're not used to seeing a car like that. But
yeah.
I'm sure as they get older and they start to appreciate, cars more, just if not at the level that we're at, at least just to be like, yep, that's a Ford, that's a Chevy, etc. Just to say, wow, I got a crazy uncle that works on these Swedish cars they haven't built in 12 years. So.
Well, that is pretty cool. I think it's time for us to wrap things up. Carl, you have a safe trip. You're headed to Portland to the next Indy race. That'll be great. I'm going to be going up to a little town near me, Auburn, Indiana. They have this fantastic classic car auction up there every year.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So,
Elliot Alvis, if you don't follow his YouTube channel, he is actually one of the hosts at the event.
Elliot?
Up in Auburn.
Elliot
Alvis, Albis.
Man, I will definitely check him out. That's great. So I'm going to go up there and I'll shoot some pictures and we'll share what's. And each year I go looking for a SAAB at Auburn. You think you're going to find one? Hasn't happened yet. So we'll see this year.
Who knows?
Yeah, let's hope. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for being here. We love y'all. And we'll see you next time around at SAAB Talk Live. Take care.
Thanks for coming, everybody.